Okay, I think I'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Chantel, and I'm a business analyst for the MedSIS program. Some of you are probably very well sick of hearing me speak at these sessions. Bear with me. We have a new dashboard. Super excited to show you guys. Hoping it will help facilitate your competence committee meetings. I met with a group of program administrators over the lunch hour today to show them kind of the administrative side of things, and we'll be holding another session this same time next week at noon for anybody administrators that couldn't make it. So their session is a little bit more focused on the administrative side. I would like to review that a little bit with you, especially for folks that are like PDs, CBD leads, competence committee chairs. And then we will look at how to actually access the competence committee review dashboard and how we're hoping it will facilitate your meetings. Okay, so what I would like to cover today is what is the Competence Committee Review Dashboard, a little bit of the administrative setup that goes into creating a Competence Committee review for a resident, and then just navigating the actual dashboard. So how do we use it? How will our faculty use it? What will residents see? So on and so forth. So the Competence Committee Review Dashboard is going to hopefully help streamline your Competence Committee processes, help facilitate your committee meetings. It will be a centralized place for all of your Competence Committee review documentation and files, improve transparency of what is being reviewed as part of the decision-making process. So your residents and your program admin, program director, coaches, and committee members will all have access to see the same information in the dashboard. And we're hoping it will alleviate some of the administrative work that goes into emailing files and documents to either academic coaches or file reviewers in preparation for a competence committee meeting. So this is what the review dashboard looks like. You can see the screen should look familiar to most folks who are using the CBME module. So it's right in the EPA dashboard, and it's a new tab that is along the top. It's called Review Dashboard. And basically programs get to configure what a competence committee review looks like within their program. So you get to identify the steps that go into it or the requirements, who is responsible for those steps, and you can apply file templates to those steps as well. And this is, so that your residents and coaches can go in here and they can grab these files from their own MedSIS account, as opposed to having to kind of email things back and forth. The bottom section is static, so this is on every review for every resident across the board, and it's kind of tracking when your meeting was, what the resident status is, what the purpose of the meeting was, if the resident was promoted to the next stage, and so these are kind of items that we came up with at our Competence Committee Review Dashboard working group that we had several months ago. Okay, so getting into a little bit of the administrative setup, and this was the focus at our lunch hour session today, was your program administrator would go in and identify what all of the possible requirements or steps are for your competence committee meeting. So, maybe you only have a couple of components that go into it. Maybe you have several, maybe there is only a couple of things that are reviewed if it's a new resident, and maybe there are more things to be reviewed when the resident is well into their program. But here they would go and I'd indicate what all of these different things were. I had mentioned to, try and name them something that's very clear and concise, because everybody that you want it to be clear about what this requirement is to everybody who has to come in and access the dashboard. When all of the requirements that you might use are identified, then you go in and you create your template. And again, programs can have one template or can have several templates. So maybe you review the same 5, things for every review, no matter what level your resident is in. Maybe you have different reviews based on the resident's level. So again, with naming what the review template is, I just let the admins know, name it something that's going to make sense if you are going to have several different templates. And then they also assign a review period to it. So what is the period of time that is being reviewed? And each program can identify what those periods of time are. So then once you go into the template, you've named it, you then start adding the requirements that are applicable to this particular template. So I just named this one transition to discipline review. Maybe you have a naming convention, or maybe you're naming them by date. Like maybe your program has committee meetings for every resident every, I don't know, like September, January, and May, and maybe that's what you want to call the template. It's entirely up to your program. So then we go in and we start adding these requirements. And so this is the screen that comes up. So when you click on that requirement dropdown, it's going to be your own requirements that you have identified. Under responsible for requirement, there's only 4 roles, and these are not configurable by program. These are system-wide, and it's administrator, trainee, academic coach, or competence committee. And then you sequence the requirement. So the learner summary report is the first thing that we want to be part of this review. And you can assign a due date if you want to. There's no notifications or anything like that that will go out and remind people that something is due. But if you want your resident to submit their reflections by a certain date, you could put that due date in there. And then you have 2 options. You can just save the requirement, or if you look at the right side screenshot, you can see that I've attached an academic coach report template. So I think most programs have their own kind of templated versions of reports that they're using, and you would your program admin would assign it here. What you end up with is a template that looks like this. So I have identified that there are 4 requirements. I have indicated who is responsible for the requirement, and where there is an applicable file template, I have it there. Once that's done, it's time to assign it to the residents. And so you're going to go into your assignment screen, or your program admin will go into the assignment screen, and all of the residents that are within your program will be in a long list. And your program admin will select those residents that this particular template is applicable to. Again, if it's all residents, you'll just select everybody. But if you have different templates for different residents, and they would just go in and select the applicable trainees. One thing I did mention to them, and I want to emphasize again, is that this process of creating a template and assigning it to your residents, it's really just you create a template and it gets copied to their portfolio. Then there's like a break. If you modify the template or make changes to it, it doesn't auto update all of the residents' templates that you've already assigned it to. The new changes are only applicable to any new trainees that you apply this template to. For example, if you put 3 steps in your template and applied it to all of your residents, and then realized, oh, we actually want a 4th step. If you go and add it to the template, it's not going to auto update everybody's profiles. You would either have to delete the checklist from your residents' dashboards and add the step to the template and reapply it, or you go in and you can manually add that step to each of your residents. There also is the option for customizing your residents' reviews. So on a particular review, you can add additional requirements. So if you had a resident who had, remediation documentation, enhanced education plans, anything else that might not be part of a typical review, you can go into your resident's dashboard and you can add a specific requirement. And again, it's the list of requirements is populated from the original list that your program identified as requirements. You would assign the role, you would sequence it. In this case, I put that it's the 5th thing that we'll review, since I already have 4 other things there. And again, you can assign a template file to it or not. You can also add reviews to one particular resident. So if your resident has to have more reviews than the other residents, you can add a review just specifically to one trainee as well. And so you can see once it's been saved out, there's that 5th new requirement for this particular trainee. Okay, so that's all I wanted to review for the administrative side. We obviously went like a little bit more in depth and there was a lot more slides that we reviewed, but I wanted you guys to have a basic understanding of the administrative side. When your coaches and committee members log in and go to this review dashboard tab, it will be blank until the administrative stuff is done. So all of the requirements have to be made and the templates and assigned to the residents, and that's the only way the review dashboard tab gets populated. Is there any questions so far? Okay, so yep.
Andrea, I just wondered, when is this available to us for programs launching in July of 2021? Is there going to be is it as fast as our program admins upload stuff, or is it available now, or will there be a date sort of in the spring, just so we know?
It would be when your program starts using the CBME module. So if you're a program that's like officially starting July 2021, once we get your program's EPAs and we get through a bit of the training process and onboard your trainees to the CBME module, then you can start using it. Like it's like kind of like a one package deal. It's within, like you have to have like a learning path and EPAs and all of that in MedSIS and set up in order to have access to this dashboard. So as soon as we can get you up and running, it's usually in the spring, then you would be able to start using it.
May I ask a question? This is Lisa from Pediatric Surgery.
Hi.
Hi, did you want me to save questions to the end, or can I ask now?
You can go ahead.
So is this in lieu of, right now, the program admins are basically sending out emails, and those emails have about 1,000 attachments. So is this in lieu of all of the attachments where, go to MedSIS, get all the information with the EPAs, and here's the last competency committee report, and here's all the other stuff? Is this in lieu of the 1,000 attachment email where we can just get all the information in one centralized place? Is that kind of what this is?
Yeah, that is the hope, is that everything that really pertains to your competence committee review can be right here. And so our goal, like with myself and with the CBME office, is to try and have a lot of these like faculty development, demos and drop-ins. And we're really trying to empower faculty to feel confident and comfortable to go in here and know where to find the information that they're looking for, as opposed to the admins pushing everything out and getting emails back with completed documents and then uploading everything here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so sorry, is there any other questions before I?
There's one in chat.
Oh, thank you.
Can you see them, Chantel, or do you want
yes.
me to?
I do see it, thanks. This part of assigning documents is not something that academic coaches have to do. So as an academic coach, your role would be, so your program administrator is going to set up this dashboard, but if you are an academic coach and you are responsible for completing an academic coach report or doing some kind of prep work and creating some kind of document or report that needs to be reviewed, then yes, you would come in here and you would upload it to this section of the resident's portfolio. So as soon as it's uploaded here, everybody who has access to this dashboard would be able to see it. And then that avoids you having to email everything back and forth. Okay, so I've logged in and I've gone to the curriculum section. So most folks will be very familiar with this. You're going to select your trainee that you have assigned the review template to, and you will see all of the steps here. So again, the sequence is here, the requirements that we've outlined are here, the person who is responsible is listed, and those template files that I attached to the original template are all listed here. In the case where there's not a template file, so for example, learner summary report, the program admin is responsible for providing this. You can see that this column here, files, is like for the completed file. So it's not the templates, it's just any completed documentation that needs to be reviewed. So in this case, as a program admin, I went to the summary report section. I ran a summary report for this review period, July 1st to September 30th, whatever dates we're looking at, and uploaded the PDF here. So now anybody who sits on the committee or the coach or the resident or whoever can come here and they can click on this document and it will download just like a regular document. And this is just a sample learner summary report from our website, but you would be able to review that learner summary report here. If you are, say, an academic coach or your resident, and it's their turn to go in, okay, I'm a coach and I see that there's a template here, I need to fill it out, you would click on it, and again, it's going to download that file. It gets opened up. Sorry, I just went on my other screen here. Okay. It's opened up. This is the templated form. You're going to fill it all in, save it back to your computer. And then when you are finished, you would go into the academic coach report step. And the coach will be able to either drag and drop the completed file, or you can click on it and upload it from here. So if I go to my desktop and I just take one of these sample documents and save it, and I would toggle this switch, step complete, yes, click save, and now you can see the completed document I just uploaded here. I know it says Competence Committee Report Template. It was just a file I had sitting on my desktop. And you can see over here, the step is complete. It has a checkbox and it's last updated on November 19th. So that's the process. So the coach would go in, or whoever is responsible for any steps would go in here. They can take the template right here, fill it out, upload it back, indicate that the step is complete. You can see that we put a due date in here. So for this particular step for the resident reflection, we identified that it should be submitted by November 10th, just so your residents are aware. And then for this responsible for requirement, there are some security restrictions behind these roles. So for example, a resident cannot go in and modify the competence committee letter or the report done by the academic coach. They won't have access to upload documents to those sections. So there is a little bit of security behind that. Templates can be, sorry, there's a question in the chat. Templates can be Word document or only PDFs. It can be Word or it can be PDFs. The files can really be pretty much anything, I think, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So that's how the kind of download, upload works. One thing I will mention is that we launched this dashboard for family medicine as a trial back in September. And one issue that came up that was reoccurring for faculty coaches that were using this, which I really never dreamed was going to be, like I didn't foresee it coming, was that folks were having a tough time understanding how to download a file, open it up, fill it out, save it to their computer, and re-upload it back. I mean, I don't know how you want to manage that within your programs, if you do any faculty development. You know, in the guide that I make that, you know, will be available on our website, I will kind of try and be very explicit about, you know, how to get this file and how to save it to, you know, that you have to save it to your computer and that you have to re-upload it. But it was something that came up. We did consider changing the functionality of this before it was launched to Royal College, but kind of being true to our policies, we wanted to roll it out, see how the first kind of couple of months goes, and if it was just, you know, it's a new thing and people haven't got it figured out yet, but there's a learning curve and we'll overcome it, great. And if we really can't get past it and it's a barrier, then we'll look into how we can streamline this process more. Like maybe these forms end up living in MedSIS, and if you click here, it takes you into a MedSIS form to complete. We'll have to look at those things in probably the next 3, 4, 5 months and see how it goes. The other thing too that I found was when somebody would click here to upload a file, so, you know, you get your drag and drop and you open your files here and you go to look for something. If you watch as I drag and drop this over, there's a little tiny progress bar and it takes about 1 second for the file. So I'm going to take this over, and when you see that I'm going to drop it here, see how there's that little green bar? It kind of goes zip really quick, and it's just showing you like it was taking a second to upload itself here. I'm going to do it one more time just for folks to see, because this was another thing that happened to come up. So I take my file, I put it in, I drop it, and there's that little green bar. So it only takes about 1 second to upload it, but folks were basically, you know, going and getting their file and dragging and dropping it and clicking save, like before it could even have a chance to upload itself. And when that happens, the file doesn't attach. And what you end up seeing is like this line is blank. And so folks are saying, I know I uploaded it, I clicked it, I saved it, I did everything, and it's still blank. It's because they're not taking that like 1 millisecond to let it load. And I'm actually surprised people can get their mouse over to click save fast, like even fast enough for that to happen. But it's another thing that I will, you know, make sure is in the user guide for folks that will be using this. The bottom section again here, it's kind of for meeting tracking purposes, and I'm sure we'll come into some kind of reporting aspect at some point where you will be able to identify what the meeting dates are, when these decisions were ratified by RPC. You'll be able to select your resident's overall status. This is our test system, and I only have family medicine statuses in here right now, but those are different from Royal College, but you'll see like the typical Royal College statuses. The purpose of the meeting, so was it an ad hoc meeting? Was it a regular review? Was it a review taking place to make a decision to promote a trainee? The outcome of the meeting, continue in the current stage, eligible for exam, promotion. I think there's supposed to be other there as well. So we would say continue in current stage, and then under promotion, you would select, you know, not applicable if it's not a meeting to promote, or did they get promoted to stage 2, 3, 4, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you would save this. So I think within your program, kind of things to decide are, you know, what do we call these requirements? What are the requirements that we'll have for our meetings? Who is going to be responsible for, you know, including the meeting dates and the statuses and keeping all of these things up to date. And at the bottom of the screen here, there's a history button. And this will show the history that for all of the changes that have been made to this dashboard. So if somebody updates statuses, if somebody you know, changes anything in here, it will be reflected in the bottom. The only part that we don't have being tracked right now is if something were to be deleted. So if the program admin went in and said, oh, I don't think we need this academic coach report as a step, and goes in and says, I'm just going to delete this from the review, I don't have a way to be able to tell, or you don't have a way to be able to tell that that's being deleted. So that's something that we are currently working on. Is there any questions about how this functions? Okay, another question I got at the program admin session was, what's the difference between the review dashboard documentation and the supporting documentation? Like, wouldn't we just have to put all of the supporting documentation in here? the hope is that that doesn't happen. So under the review, we're hoping that it's really those like, you know, important reports and things like that that have to go into the review. And if there are other things that need to be reviewed that are like day-to-day, maybe there's some assessments or, you know, I don't even know what would be in there that everybody is reviewing maybe as part of the review. Like, so the coach is going to go in, they're going to look at the EPAs, they're going to look at the evaluations. Maybe there's a couple things under supporting documentation. The hope is to kind of keep the day-to-day supporting documentation separate from the portfolio or the competence committee review section. And only because we don't want like a replica. We don't want the review dashboard to get bogged down with like 15 different things that are going into a competence committee review, and then also having those things uploaded to supporting documentation or vice versa. We are looking at updating the supporting documentation section. It is currently just a document repository with a long list of files, and folks have asked, you know, can we create folders? Can we have a better way to organize this? It is on the list and it will be addressed. I don't have a time frame for it at this moment, but we wanted to get this competence committee review dashboard done first, and then hopefully we can come up with a way to link it here, like maybe one of the steps in your portfolio, or sorry, your competence committee review is review of supporting documentation. And maybe under the supporting documentation tab, there is a folder that is specific to the, you know, July to September review, or the, you know, transition to discipline review. So, you know, somehow we can link it. So we are trying to streamline that a little bit, understanding that there are supporting documentation materials that have to be reviewed as part of the competence committee review meeting. Is there any questions about the administrative stuff or about how to access anything here? Okay. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, it's Joanne from Psychiatry. There's actually a question in the chat about whether can a draft form of a file be uploaded in a way that it could then be edited once it's in there. So those template files could, if someone uploads one, but it's only partially completed, or you need to edit it, can you make edits once the file is uploaded?
Yes, you could make, so for example, if you were to download your academic coach report and you got halfway done, you're wondering if you can upload it back to here and go and make changes to it at a later time. The answer is yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, when we're looking at the one that you have up for an example, where it says Victoria completed reflection, that document right there could be edited in MedSIS.
Well, it can't be edited in MedSIS because it's just like a Word document. That's not like a MedSIS document, but you could go back in here and open the completed or, you know, partially completed document and can finish doing whatever. Oh, I have any, you know, finish filling it in, and then save it back to your computer again. And you could go back in here and re-upload it. So you would just click on here and you would get rid of this old version of the file and you would upload your completed version of it.
Okay. So I think then that the answer to the question that was asked is you'd actually have to delete it and upload an updated version.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Other question, dashboard is getting populated, difficult to navigate. Will there be an option to toggle how we see documents in different stages of training? Is this for supporting documentation? So, okay, yes. So yes, in supporting documentation, let me just, So in supporting documentation here, it's just a document repository, and that's what we're hoping to be able to update and be able to have programs either create folders and that sort of thing that are a little bit more clear as to what you should be looking at for each review. So ideally, I've named this particular review PGY1 initial review. There would be a corresponding folder in the supporting documentation section that would be called PGY1 initial review supporting documentation. So, and everything would be grouped together. I think that's kind of the idea we're just working towards there. And then also for this review dashboard, this is just the first review. Your resident is going to go through many reviews and they will all be on this dashboard. And so you can collapse and expand. So, this is initial PGY1, then you'll see, PGY2, PGY3, or however many reviews this resident needs. So they're kind of collapsible. I'm just going back into the chat. Would you create different review dashboard templates for different stages of training? So this is entirely up to your program. So, I think probably some programs have the same steps that regardless if you're a resident 2 months into residency or you're a resident 2 years into residency, maybe you're reviewing all of the same components. And in that case, you would have one template and you would just keep reapplying it to your residents every time they were going to have a new review. Or you could have a template that is, this is kind of an example from family medicine. Their initial PGY1s have certain things that are reviewed, but then once you are a PGY2, there are additional things because now you're further into your residency program. You've had to complete some program requirements, and so there are actually more steps that need to be reviewed when you're a PGY2. So the option is there for you. Okay, I wanted to lastly take you to our CBME website. All of our resources are here under training, under the CBME section, and everything is organized by audience. So residents, supervisors, PDs, PAs, academic coaches, and competence committee members, and you can see everything that's there. As you can see, our list of things is starting to get fairly long. And also now that we've onboarded family medicine, now we have stuff specific to Royal College, stuff specific to family medicine, and stuff that is applicable to both. We are working on revamping our website, and our new format is going to look something more like this. So here's your audience, learners, administrators, supervisors, whatever it might be. And then the documentation will be, categorized. So for example, for CBME under learners, we would have a section for Royal College, a section for family medicine, and a section that is generic, that is applicable to everyone. And that will be how each of the tabs that we have in the CBME training section will be organized instead of having them prefaced like this. The other thing that I will mention, so I have the slides for the program admins. Those will be uploaded here. The slides that I just went through, I will also upload. And then what I have is something that looks, I'll do a quick user guide, something that looks like this, that will be explaining to your coaches and your competence committee members, how to get to this review dashboard and kind of how it works. How to upload or how to view a file, how to download the file, how to put it back up, and that will get posted on our website as well. So in case anybody is using the website, to get their faculty up and going or sending things out, just note that things are going to change. We also have lots of enhancements to the CBME module, which were demonstrated at the retreat, but there are new tabs here that we didn't have before. So I recently just went through and kind of did a reorg of the user guides that we have available to coaches and residents and committee members. And I'm just finalizing those, and those will get put up on the website as well. So I think over the coming weeks, I will get Allison to send out an email, just, you know, reminding you that the website is there and that all of the materials have been fully updated with all of the new enhancements, including the review dashboard. Is there any other questions?
Chantal, do you mind just showing what the EPA's tab will look like? I think the only dashboard I've seen for EPA's is the Royal College part. So, perfect. Okay.
So yeah, this is what the EPA dashboard looks like. So it goes by stage and then EPA, and then the requirements within each of the EPAs are listed there as well.
Cool.
And then it kind of shows for each of the requirements how the resident is progressing, and these kind of, you know, like mini activities roll up into the overall EPA, and then the EPA percentage progresses roll up into the overall stage. And that's how these are calculated. And then it shows, you know, how many forms were completed, the breakdown of the scores based on the entrustment scale, and then the status of the EPA.
Awesome. Is this downloadable into something that we could like export to send someone else who didn't have MedSIS access by any chance?
Yeah, so there's a learner summary report option that is accessible to everybody who has access to the dashboard except the resident. They're the only person that can't run a summary report on themselves. And you basically put in your date, so what's the period of time that you're looking at, and then you pick what you want to go into this report. So if you're looking at stage 1 and 2 or just stage 2, you would select it. In terms of the EPA stuff that you want to come up, like the information, it's kind of saying like a summary of the EPA, the breakdown of how the milestones were assessed, and collated comments. And then we have the narrative form 4. So that would pull in any form 4 narratives that got completed on the resident, pulling in ITERs and WBAs, and then pulling in anything from the activity log. And we are actually enhancing the activity log. Someone else on the team is working on that module, which we're hoping will look and function a little bit more like the CBME module. So I think we're thinking that you'll have like a procedure dashboard where you'll be able to see and track all of your procedures as well. And then what that report ends up looking like is on our website, we have this sample learner summary report. And it just basically pulls in the dashboard. So it will show you the stage progress, the EPA progress, the number of forms, the breakdown, the status, and then it will show you all the milestones and the breakdown of how they were assessed and collated comments. And it will do that for all of the EPAs for the stage that you selected. And then it also pulls in an aggregate of the ITERs. So it will, for that overall scale on the ITER, it has an aggregate of how many for this particular ITER were completed, the rotation, the dates, who completed it, and then collated comments. If you run this in the system, like when you generate the report, it actually comes up in MedSIS, and then you have the option to export it to PDF. Before you export it to PDF, we actually just implemented a function where there's a section here that says more details, and you can click on it and it will bring up an aggregate of the entire ITER, because we recognize this is just giving you the overall scale. So if you kind of wanted to look at like further details, you would click there and it would be able to show you that. And it will do that for all of the different ITERs that have been completed. And then again, it pulls in the activity log, you know, just an aggregate. A lot of programs aren't using the current activity log. It's a standard. There's only one form. But when we revamp it, programs will be able to have their own forms for their procedures. And all of that will get pulled into this report as well. And there will be a specific dashboard related to procedure tracking too.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem. I just saw some stuff in the chat. Can you show how EPAs look at tab? Fantastic, thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I will, if nobody has any more questions, I will let you go. This is great. It only ended up taking 40 minutes. And so I let the program admins that showed up today know, you know, I'll post the information, the instructions on how they can get started on their own, and I'll send the link to them this week or early next week. And I just let them know as they get started and they're trying to go through this, if there's, you know, they have any questions questions or anything is coming up, feel free to contact me. So same with, you know, the leadership folks that are, you know, going to be working on this stuff as well. If anything comes up or you're having questions about how this could potentially work for you, or if there's different ways this could work for you, then just email the medsis@mcmaster.ca account, and I will get back to you for sure. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.